Hey guys, Dwayne here. I want to talk today about not responding to your ex when they're trying to get you to engage in conversation and dialogue. As you progress on with this and you're trying to do your no contact and you're doing your gray rock, what will happen is your ex is going to try to find unique ways to force conversation, to force interaction, and to try to get you to engage with them and try to get you to interact, and more than likely to try to get to trigger you or to push your buttons to get you to emotionally respond. The main thing on this is that you have to learn to not take the bait, right? You have to look at those communications and look at that information request and decide whether you really need to interact with them. At first glance, at first glance and in the initial part of this, the answer is going to be yes. You're going to think that you need to respond. You're going to think, well, it's a question I'm supposed to respond, or it's about our kid, so I need to respond. As time goes on, what you're going to realize is that's not really the case. You don't really have to respond to everything. Now, this was a tough one for me to wrap my head around, because when things were happening and school information was happening, or maybe there was an issue with medical, I felt that either I needed to share information with her or that she needed to share information with me. And which would start these dialogues and these conversations back and forth, which were really pointless because it didn't solve anything. It didn't accomplish anything, and it didn't make anything better. The only thing it really resulted in was making me frustrated and making me angry and and getting an emotional reaction out of me. I had an incident that happened just a few days ago. Actually, it was on Christmas. I know that the kids are going up to my mom's with her, and you guys, if you watched other videos, you know that there's a situation around that. But it is what it is. I've made my peace with it. After all this time, I get this email from her, which says on Christmas Day, saying, hey, send, the kids need their suitcases, please send them with them. And initially when it happened, I was like, okay. And actually the way it came up is when my kids were with me, we were about halfway through, we were getting ready to go up to go play in the snow. And my middle daughter said, hey, did you get the email from mommy? And I'm like, no, so I looked at it, and it was that. And I mean, it's obvious what it's about, right? I mean, the whole point of this is to drive the conversation to either, if I hadn't already figured out, to get me to ask the kids, oh, where are you going, and stuff like that. And I just didn't take the bait. It's like, okay, guys, you need your suitcases? Fine. Grab your suitcases, take what you need. And I have no intention of interacting with her, to be perfectly honest. I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, it's silly. She should have bought suitcases for them, but whatever. I'll just buy replacement ones. I'm just not going to engage with it. I'm not going to deal with it. I didn't allow it to get an emotional reaction out of me. There was no there was no conflicted dialogue with the kids. But that's what it was. That's what it was, guys. It was an attempt to try to insert herself into the middle of my little bit of time I had with the kids, and to try to bring up conversation or to point out that what she was doing with the kids, taking them to my mom's. I mean, it's almost comical now, right? But I'll tell you, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, this would have been a completely different thing. It would have been a completely different discussion. It would have been, no, you need to get if you need suitcases, you need to get your own suitcases or whatever. I mean, it was just, it would have devolved into some stupid little petty conversation that served no purpose, that was going to accomplish absolutely nothing other than giving her supply and giving her potential, if I fought on it, to, information to justify and validate her smear campaign and her version of reality. I've talked about this a lot lately, where you just have to get to the point where you just don't care. It just doesn't matter. And guys, it doesn't happen overnight, right? I'm not saying that you can just, I can say these words and you'll look at them and go, oh, wow, I just don't care anymore. I get that it doesn't work that way. I know it doesn't work that way. It didn't work that way for me. It took me a long time of going down this road of engaging in these conversations and trying to fight these battles and realizing that it doesn't accomplish a darn thing. One of the things that you're going to realize as you're going through this and you're dealing with your narcissistic ex is that they don't change. There's no reasoning with them. You can't guilt them into a situation. You can't, like I said, you can't reason with them. Getting into a conversation or a verbal argument serves zero purpose. They're not going to come to a grand realization that they were wrong or see your point of view. All that whole process is an attempt to engage you in conversation, to get an emotional reaction from you, and that's it. That's what it is. Now, when you realize that's what's going on, and that there isn't any genuine conversation, even if they're trying to pretend to engage with you, all it is to try to open up the door to get the communication going so that they can reestablish that level of control and that narcissistic supply from you. Now, your best defense on this is just to not play. If anybody out there remembers the old War Game movie from, I don't know, what was it, the late mid-80s, 80s or 90s, with Matthew Broderick, where you have the computer who's taken everything over and it decided that it's gonna, basically nuke the entire world. And at the end, the guy who wrote the program got the computer to realize that the only way to win is to not play. And honestly, that is exactly the situation you're in. Your best defense, your best approach on this is to not play, because there is no, victory in a direct confrontation with these people. Now, let me back up. I will say that if you are successful in court and in those mechanisms, then yes, potentially you could have a victory. But if you are just doing one-on-one communication with your ex to try to solve problems and come up to an agreement, you are going to beat your head against the wall and accomplish nothing. And that's by design. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're going to try to suck you in, get you involved, say things to push your buttons to get an emotional reaction from you. And that's what it is. And more than likely what will happen is if you do engage in those conversations and if you do get frustrated and if you are arguing back and forth, when you've gotten fully mad and are just beside yourself, they'll back away and they'll give you a silent treatment. And then you're just stuck there basically with no response. And then you're trying to get a response from them. I'm telling you guys, if you're in this situation, your best bet is to find a way to not engage. Like in this situation with the example I was giving you earlier, I just got the stuff, had the kids loaded up, didn't worry about it, wasn't a big deal. I didn't engage with her, didn't really get involved with the kids or anything like that. I mean, it's just like, I don't respond. I don't give a reaction. I continue to gray rock or hybrid no contact. That's my best approach. Now, like I said before, I absolutely understand that you just can't graduate to that thought process overnight. You're not going to be able to, because you're going to want to fight back. You're going to want to hold them accountable. You're going to want some validation or punishment or I'm trying to think of the right word. You want a consequence for them. You want them to not just sit there and get away with what they're doing. And that's absolutely normal, right? That is a normal response. And until you get to the point where you're okay with it, you're going to get stuck in that. All I'm trying to say on this, and what I want you to think about, is take a step back and ask yourself, has anything ever good come out of those dialogues, those conversations? Have you ever had a success? I mean, maybe you've had a little gotcha where you've cornered her in something, but did it really accomplish anything? And then so now as you're thinking about that, think about this. In the course of time when you're dealing with that, how did you feel? Were you having an anxiety attack? Were you mad? Was your blood pressure up? Were you, fuming? Think about it. You're in that situation. Your emotions are getting your buttons are getting pushed. You're getting angry. You're getting mad. More than likely, it's probably also impacting your interaction with your kids. And again, ask yourself, is it really worth it? Is your time served better engaging with your ex, trying to fight those situations and have a dialogue? Or is it to just find a way to say, okay, I'm not engaging, I'm not involved, I'm not going to get involved, I'm not going to put the kids in the middle, I don't care anymore. And guys, like I said, I know this is a lot easier said than done. And I'm hoping by me just talking about it a little bit, it can make you think about it. So when you're getting stuck in those situations where you are dealing with it and you are angry and you are trying to figure something out, and you're trying to get the ex to do something right, you're trying to get them to be cooperative, or you're trying to get them to do something for your child, or whatever it is, you know, it's a frustrating process. Now, you got to pick your battles, right? Now, I'm not saying that you just back off on, I'm not saying you just back off on everything, okay? Now, if you have the resources and the money, if I had more money and finances weren't tight, I probably would just completely pretend like she didn't exist and wouldn't involve her on anything. So anything that came up with the kids that was a joint bill, I would just pay on medical and stuff like that and not worry about it. I've already done that with a lot of the school stuff, like my son's getting ready to graduate, so I've already put the money down on the graduation stuff, and I know I'm gonna have to buy all the yearbooks because that's the way it always works out. Now, if you're in a situation where that's not the case and a court order says they're supposed to do it, then you're kind of stuck. You have one or two choices. You either don't do the stuff for your kids. Now, I'll tell you on this, just as another example, that happened a few years back where I had paid for one of the kids' yearbooks, and basically said, hey, and I think I paid for two of them, and then there was another one that was expensive. I'm like, hey, I got these other two. You can get this one. Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't pay it. I even finally I'm like, okay, forget it. I gave my daughter half the money. So it was only like $30, $35 that she would need to come up with. She wouldn't do it. And she didn't care. She didn't think about what was going to happen with our daughter. Now, the problem is, so I screwed up. My daughter didn't get a yearbook because of the way it played out. And I was trying to prove a point, but these people don't care. They don't have any guilt. They don't think about anything other than themselves. So when you're going through this, just try to take a step back. When you see that you're getting really frustrated and you're getting roped into this, take a pause, take a breath, think about what's going on, and think about if it's really worth it to engage. Most of the time, the answer is no. Most of the time, even if they're asking a question that you already know, that they already know, it's like you don't need to answer it. If they're trying to engage with you and if you can find a way that you do not need to answer, just don't respond. Don't engage. It just keeps things a lot simpler, and it gives you some space to heal and to recover from this. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this up. If you guys have something you wanna add to how you've been dealing with this type of situation with your ex, please leave it in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe, and I will talk to you guys on the next video. Take care, bye.